Welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight. Before we begin, I kindly invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. Your support helps me continue creating these calm journeys through history. Now, let us drift together into a long and quiet exploration of bourgeois life in the Middle Ages. The scene begins in a narrow street, paved with uneven stones, where the homes of merchants and craftsmen stand side by side. Their facades lean slightly forward, as though time has pressed upon them for centuries. Wooden beams, darkened by smoke and weather, hold small glass windows that reflect only a faint glimmer of the fading daylight. The atmosphere here is not hurried. It is slow, almost stagnant, as though the air itself prefers to rest. Inside the homes of the bourgeois, there is a sense of modest order. A wooden table stands at the center of the main room. Upon it, a simple cloth has been spread, faded by years of use. The smell of bread lingers faintly in the air, mixed with the earthy aroma of dried herbs that hang in small bundles by the wall. The room is not filled with sound. Instead, it is hushed, with only the quiet creak of the timber frame when a breeze passes outside. The family gathers in silence, each absorbed in small tasks. A woman stitches slowly, her needle moving through fabric in a rhythm that could continue without end. A man sorts through parchment and records, marking debts and agreements that mean little to anyone beyond these walls. The children, tired from the day, sit in the corner, tracing shapes into the dust upon the floor. As the evening deepens, the scene shifts to the dining space. Bowls of thick stew are placed carefully on the table. The meal is heavy with barley and root vegetables, and perhaps, on fortunate nights, a small piece of salted meat. There is little conversation. The clinking of wooden spoons is steady, unbroken, and almost soothing in its ebb. The day begins in a narrow medieval street, where the walls of houses lean forward as if whispering to one another. The cobblestones beneath your feet are uneven, smoothed only by years of passing steps. Yet now, in this early hour, they rest untouched. The street is almost empty. A faint sound of a cartwheel echoes somewhere in the distance, slow and unhurried, like a memory that drifts rather than arrives. The houses of the bourgeois stand close together, their wooden beams marked by smoke and rain. Small windows, patched with pieces of glass, capture only fragments of the gray sky. The silence between the homes feels deep, as though the walls themselves have grown used to listening rather than speaking. Stepping inside, the air is cool and still. A single wooden table occupies the center of the room, its surface worn smooth by years of use. Upon it, a candle waits, not yet lit, its wax hardened into gentle folds. The room is simple, but not empty. On one wall hangs a piece of cloth embroidered with careful, repetitive patterns, shapes that have no end and no beginning. On another wall, bundles of herbs dry slowly, filling the room with a faint, earthy fragrance. A woman works at her stitching, her needle sliding through the cloth with an endless rhythm. The sound is small, yet it is steady, like a clock that does not mark hours but only continuity. The man sits nearby, reviewing small parchments and notes, his lips moving silently as he counts. The children play quietly, their voices hushed, as if the walls have taught them the value of stillness. As the day folds into evening, bowls of thick stew are placed upon the table. The ingredients are simple: barley, onions, carrots, and, when fortune allows, a little salted meat. The air is filled with the heavy smell of broth, a smell that does not change from one night to the next. The family eats in silence. Wooden spoons dip, rise, and return to the bowls. The sound repeats, soft and unchanging, until the bowls are empty. There are no stories told, no songs sung, only the quiet act of nourishment, carried out without rush, without excitement. Beyond the walls of the home, the city begins to sleep. The marketplace is deserted, its stalls covered by cloths that sway faintly in the evening breeze. A watchman passes, his steps slow, his lantern casting a soft golden light against the stone. Each step sounds like the ticking of a distant clock, measuring not seconds, but centuries. In the home, the fire has burned down to faint embers. The room glows with a dull red light that fades slowly into gray. The family rests on straw beds layered with coarse linen. The air grows colder, but no one stirs. The night moves forward with the patience of eternity. When a morning returns, the market awakens, but not with noise. The stalls open slowly, one by one. A merchant arranges bolts of cloth, folding them carefully into piles. Another places baskets of apples on a wooden board, each apple nearly the same as the next, forming rows of quiet repetition. Transactions occur without hurry. A coin is exchanged for bread. A handful of grain is weighed. Voices remain low, their tones steady, their words familiar, as though the same conversation has been spoken 1,000 times before. Life for the bourgeois moves in circles. The work repeats, the meals repeat, the market repeats, and the quiet of night always returns. There are no great changes. The passing of time is measured not by events, but by the soft rhythm of daily tasks. One season blends into the next, like colors fading into one another on a tapestry. And so, we drift from one moment to another. The stitching of a needle, the creaking of a cartwheel, the clinking of a spoon, the sigh of wind against the wooden beams. Each sound is small. Each movement is slow. Each moment belongs to the quiet. The life of the medieval bourgeois is not a story of excitement. It is a story of stillness, of cycles, of endless calm. And in following their quiet days, you may feel your own mind slowing, your own thoughts softening, your own breath deepening. The workshop is quiet. Wooden tools rest on the bench, their handles smoothed by countless hands. A small hammer strikes, not quickly, not loudly, but with steady patience. Each sound blends with the stillness. A craftsman planes a piece of timber, shaving away thin curls that fall in gentle spirals to the floor. The shavings gather without pattern, forming small piles that look the same each day. The work is not rushed. The work is not new. It is only repeated as it has always been. The church is cool and dim. Tall stone columns rise without hurry toward the ceiling. The air smells faintly of wax and stone dust. Candles flicker, their flames bowing with each draft of air, yet never breaking. A few figures kneel in silence, their lips moving without voice. The sound is not of prayer, but of quiet breathing. Time is not moved quickly here. The minutes stretch, becoming nearly indistinguishable from hours. In a corner of the home, cloth is folded and stacked. Linen, coarse but clean, lies in layers of pale color. Wool, dyed with muted shades of brown or gray, hangs from wooden pegs. A woman lifts one piece, smoothing its wrinkles with the palm of her hand. The fabric is heavy, plain, and familiar. She folds it again, just as she has done countless times before. The task has no beginning and no end. Rain falls softly over the city. The drops strike the roofs with a rhythm that is neither fast nor slow. The sound is constant, like a lullaby without melody. Streets grow damp, but no one hurries. Cloaks are drawn close, hoods pulled low, and feet continue step by step. Rain has come before. Rain will come again. It changes nothing. The year moves forward in circles. In winter, smoke rises from every chimney, and the breath of each passerby lingers in the cold air. In spring, the market smells faintly of herbs and onions, green and sharp. In summer, windows open, letting in the warm air that carries the drone of insects. In autumn, barrels of grain stand stacked, waiting for use. Each season replaces the last, not suddenly, but slowly, as though one shade of color fades into another. Even during a festival, calm remains. Lanterns glow softly, hum along the street. Music plays, but it is simple, repeating the same notes over and over. Children watch quietly, holding their parents' hands. The air carries the smell of roasted bread, of spiced wine, of smoke drifting upward. Yet even celebration feels steady, unchanging, as though joy itself follows the same rhythm as daily life. A road stretches out, lined with trees. A cart moves slowly, pulled by a tired horse. Wheels turn with a creak that repeats endlessly. Dust rises, then falls again, without pattern, without rush. The traveler does not seek adventure. He seeks only the next town, another market, another quiet street. Beyond the city walls, the silence feels even deeper, as though the world itself rests. The guild hall stands with heavy doors, carved but weathered. Inside, benches are lined against the walls. Men sit together, speaking little. Their voices rise and fall with steady tones, repeating words about weights, measures, prices. A candle burns at the center. Its flame tilts, then steadies, then tilts again. Papers are passed across the table, sealed with wax. Nothing changes quickly. Decisions are slow, drawn out like the hours themselves. In a courtyard, children roll a wooden hoop. The hoop turns, wobbles, and falls. Then it is lifted, and the game begins again. Their laughter is quiet, more like murmurs than shouts. One child draws shapes in the dirt with a stick. Circles, lines, patterns with no end. The drawings fade beneath new footsteps. They are made again and again. The play does not finish. It only repeats. At the gate, guards lean on their spears. The doors are tall and heavy, closed each night, opened each morning. Travelers arrive slowly. A cart passes through, its wheels groaning. A farmer enters with a sack of grain. No one hurries. The same faces appear day after day, entering and leaving as though walking through the same rhythm. The gate remains unchanged. It's would darkened by years of hands pushing, pulling, closing, opening. The river moves beside the city walls. Its surface ripples, carrying reflections of stone, of sky, of passing clouds. Boats drift, their sails furled, their movement guided by nothing more than the current. On the bank, laundry is laid out, each piece nearly the same as the other. White pail plain. Water drips steadily, a rhythm without beginning, without end. The river is not in haste. It flows as it always has. Behind a home, a small garden grows. Cabbages stand in rows, their leaves broad and heavy. Herbs sprout in clusters, their scents faint and earthy. A woman bends, pulling weeds slowly, one by one. The soil is dark. The air is quiet. The work continues each morning, each season. Growth is patient, harvest is patient, and the garden remains a circle of repetition. In a dim room, candles are dipped. A string is lowered into hot wax, lifted, cooled, then lowered again. Each layer builds slowly, coat upon coat, until the candle thickens into shape. Rows of candles hang, identical, silent. Their purpose is not yet to shine, but simply to wait. The process repeats. Wax melts, wax hardens, wax becomes light, always in the same rhythm. From the church tower, a bell tolls. Its sound is deep, slow, and measured. It marks the hour, but the hour changes nothing. Life continues as it did before. The sound spreads over rooftops, through the market, across the river. People pause, not in surprise, but in recognition. The bell is always rung. The bell will always ring. Its voice is part of the stillness. At night, watchmen walk the streets. Their lanterns glow softly, their footsteps echo in the silence. One calls the hour in a steady voice, not loud, not hurried. His words fall into the empty alleys like stones into water. Windows are closed. Fires are low. The city sleeps, and the watchmen pass again and again, always at the same pace, always in the same circle. The loom stands in a corner, its wooden frame tall and patient. Threads stretch in pale rows, tight and even. The shuttle passes back and forth, sliding through the warp with a quiet rhythm. Each pass adds another line, another pattern, another repetition. The cloth grows slowly, so slowly it is difficult to see change. Only the sound marks time. The baker's shop is warm, the air filled with the faint smell of flour. Loaves rise in neat rows, their shapes rounded, their surfaces cracked in the same way day after day. A wooden peel slides them from the oven, one by one. The work is repeated each morning, the bread always the same, the task without variation. In the stable, horses shift gently on straw. Their tails swish without urgency. Their hooves scrape the floor with soft, steady sounds. A boy fills a bucket with water, carries it, pours it, then begins again. The smell of hay lingers, unchanged from season to season. At the well, water is drawn. A rope creaks as the bucket lowers, then rises. The bucket tips, filling jars, filling pitchers, filling basins. Again, the rope unwinds. Again, the bucket dips. The same task has been carried out by countless hands, and it will continue without end. The blacksmith's forge glows faintly. Iron is struck with a hammer, not in bursts, but in steady, deliberate rhythm. Sparks rise and fall, dimming before they reach the floor. The sound of the hammer echoes into the street, blending with silence until it is no longer a noise, but part of the stillness itself. The town square lies quiet in the afternoon. Pigeons gather, moving in small steps across the stones. They peck, pause, flutter, then settle again. Their movements follow no urgency. A few townsfolk pass through, their steps measured, their voices low, as though repeating a pattern known to all. The schoolroom is narrow, its benches worn by years of use. Children sit with slates and chalk, copying letters, copying numbers, one after another. Their voices murmur as they recite, each syllable steady, repeating lessons unchanged from the day before. The master watches in silence, marking corrections with calm patience. A spinning wheel turns slowly in a corner. Fibers are drawn out, twisted, gathered into a thread. The wheel hums with quiet constancy. It sounds soft and circular. The thread winds onto the spindle, growing longer, longer without pause, without end. From the watchtower, the countryside stretches outward. Fields spread in muted colors, divided by hedges and paths. A rider moves slowly along a road, his figure small, his pace steady. Beyond, the horizon is hazy, distant, unchanged. The view does not shift. It remains as it has always been. Inside a kitchen, a pot simmers over the fire. Bubbles rise and break with soft, repeating sounds. The steam drifts upward, slow and unhurried, vanishing into the beams of the ceiling. A hand stirs the pot, not to change, but only to continue the same motion again and again. The shoemaker works with leather, his knife tracing the same cuts, his awl piercing holes in careful rows. Thread pulls through, tightens, then repeats. The shoes he makes are sturdy, plain, almost indistinguishable from one another. Each pair echoes the last, as though time itself leaves no mark of difference. The tailor's bench is covered with cloth. Shears rest upon folded wool, their blades dulled by years of use. A hand smooths fabric, measures with string, then cuts in slow, deliberate strokes. The sound of shears is faint but steady. Pieces are joined, stitched, pressed flat. A garment takes shape, not quickly, but patiently, as though time bends around the needle. Along the city wall, moss grows between stones. Ivy climbs upward, its leaves unmoved by haste. A guard leans upon the parapet, watching fields that never change. Beyond, cattle move slowly across the grass, their bells ringing in distant, steady tones. The wind moves through the wall's cracks, sighing softly without end. In a carpenter's shop, wood shavings curl to the floor. A plane glides over the surface of a beam, leaving it smooth, even, repeating the same motion again and again. Nails are driven with a hammer, each strike alike, each pause alike. The scent of pine and oak fills the room, familiar, constant, never new. The apothecary's shelves are lined with jars. Roots, leaves, powders, oils, each arranged in rows, each labeled in the same careful hand. A pestle grinds herbs into dust, its stones circling within the mortar, turning, circling, turning again. The air is rich with scents, bitter, sweet, sharp, faint. None overwhelms. All blend into stillness. At the wash house by the river, women beat cloth against the stones. The rhythm is slow, unchanging, echoing across the water. Fabrics are wrung, folded, laid out to dry. The river carries the sound away, only to bring it back with the same cadence. Each movement belongs to the endless pattern of water and work. The scribe bends over parchment. A quill moves across the page, dipping into ink, then gliding in steady strokes. Letters appear, one after another, neat and identical. Each line fills with words that mirror lines before. The page fills. Another is begun. The work has no haste, no finality, only continuation. A potter shapes clay upon the wheel. His hands press lightly, evenly, guiding the form as it turns. The clay rises, curves, steadies. Water drips over his fingers, smooth and constant. Each vessel resembles the last, and the wheel never ceases its slow, circular song. In the church, candles flicker along the stone walls. Their flames bend with the drafts. Their wax softens and falls in drops that harden in place. A chant rises, low and steady, each voice blending into the other. The tones do not climb, do not fall, but move forward like footsteps on a road without end. The mill by the stream turns its wheel with patient strength. Water flows against its blades, spilling over, moving on. Inside, stones grind grain into flour. The sound is steady rumble that never changes. Bags are filled, tied, stacked, waiting in silence for the same task to begin again tomorrow. In the orchard, fruit trees stand in rows. Apples swell slowly on their branches. A ladder rests against a trunk. A hand picks one apple, then another, placing them in a basket. The work continues, unhurried, until the basket is filled. Then another is brought. The trees remain, their cycles unchanged across years. In the garden, narrow beds of earth hold rows of cabbage and leeks. The soil is dark and damp, pressed by many careful hands. A woman kneels, pulling weeds one by one. The roots come free with small, steady motions. A watering jug tips, drops falling in soft succession, each sinking into the earth, each disappearing the same way. The tanner works beside the riverbank. Hides are soaked, stretched, and scraped with deliberate strokes. The knife passes back and forth, always the same, leaving the surface smooth. The smell of leather lingers, heavy and unchanged. Piles of skins rest in layers, waiting for boots, belts, and bindings that will all resemble one another. The candlemaker dips wicks in a hot tallow. Each strand is lowered, lifted, set aside to cool. The movement repeats without end, each layer thickening slowly, each candle taking its shape in silence. When rows of candles stand completed, they are nearly identical, tall and pale, their purpose clear yet ordinary. At the dye house, vats of colored water simmer gently. Cloth is lowered into the liquid, held beneath the surface, then lifted out again, dripping. The colors are muted, deep browns, faded reds, quiet blues. Fabrics are hung on wooden poles to dry in the air, motionless, shifting only slightly in the breeze. Inside a guild hall, men sit at long tables. Documents lie open before them, marked with seals and signatures. The air is filled with the scratch of quills and the low murmur of voices that never rise. Rules are read, debts recorded, agreements renewed. Nothing begins, nothing ends, only the repetition of order. In the countryside beyond the walls, peasants walk the fields with tools in hand. Hoes strike the earth, then lift again, then strike once more. Furrows extend in straight lines, carried forward without pause. Oxen move at a slow pace, pulling a wooden plow, their breaths rising in clouds, steady as the rhythm of the soil itself. The inn's common room lies in half-light. A bench creaks as someone sits. Wooden cups are set down on the table, filled, emptied, and filled once more. The talk is low, the words familiar, exchanged in the same tone as on nights before. The fire burns with quiet constancy, its glow softening the beams above. By the river, fishermen mend their nets. Fingers weave rope through holes, knotting each tear with the same patient skill. The net lies across the ground like a tapestry, wide and repetitive. When one section is repaired, another begins, until the work circles back to the first again. On the edge of the town, the cemetery rests. Stones tilt gently, worn smooth by rain and moss. The grass is cut low, tended without haste. A bell tolls in the distance, slow and even, each note falling into silence, then returning, then fading again. Nothing disturbs the quiet order of the place. At the brewery, wooden barrels stand in rows. A worker stirs a vat with a long pole, the liquid circling endlessly. The scent of malt drifts through the room, heavy and unchanging. Foam rises, subsides, rises again. Barrels are filled, sealed, and rolled into place. The same work has been done and will be done again. The tailor's apprentice gathers scraps of fabric from the floor. He folds them into neat piles, their colors subdued, their shapes irregular but ordinary. The master continues his stitching, drawing the needle through wool with quiet consistency. The garments grow in number, each a copy of the last. A watchman pauses at the city gate. His lantern swings gently, casting light across the worn stones. He shifts his weight, takes a slow step, then another. The wooden door behind him stands firm, its surface carved with marks of passing years. The road beyond stretches outward, empty, unchanged. The weaver's loom creaks with each pull of the shuttle. Threads cross and lock, over and under, row upon row. The pattern is simple, repeating endlessly, the fabric lengthening slowly as if it were the passing of days itself. The weaver's foot presses the treadle, then releases, then presses again, the motion steady as breathing. In the courtyard, water drips from a stone fountain. Each drop falls into the basin, sending out a small ripple that fades, then returns again with the next fall of water. Pigeons gather along the rim, their wings ruffling softly before they settle into stillness. The sound of dripping continues, unchanged. The baker kneads dough upon a long wooden board. His hands press forward, fold back, press forward again. The dough stretches, softens, and rises beneath his touch. Loaves are shaped into rounds, dusted with flour, placed aside to rest. When baked, they will resemble loaves from yesterday and loaves from the day before. In a narrow alley, a cooper shapes wooden staves. He binds them with iron hoops, striking gently until they fall into place. A barrel takes form, standing among others that share the same shape, the same purpose. Rows of barrels fill the space, their presence quiet but constant. The clock tower ticks with slow weight. Its bell does not hurry, does not rush. Each sound falls across the rooftops, echoing faintly, then dissolving. The hands move forward in patient measure, marking hours that resemble one another without distinction. In a quiet workshop, a glass blower turns his pipe. Molten glass gathers at the end, glowing softly. He blows into the tube, the form expanding with each breath, rounding slowly into shape. The glass cools, hardens, becomes still. Another is made, and another, each alike, each different only in the smallest way. The laundry lines stretch across a courtyard. White cloth hangs motionless, then stirs gently as the wind passes through. Shadows of the fabric ripple over the ground, then fade as clouds shift across the sky. The cloth remains, drying in silence. A merchant sits within his shop. Shelves are lined with jars, bolts of cloth, and small weights of metal. He writes in a ledger, marking the exchange of one item for another, then closes the book. The next page will open the same way, with the same quiet marks. The shoemaker polishes leather with a piece of cloth. His strokes are slow, even tracing the same surface until it shines faintly in the dim light. When finished, he sets the shoe beside others that look nearly identical. The task begins again without pause, without end. In the fields, haystacks rise in quiet symmetry. Workers lift bundles of straw, placing them one atop another. The stacks grow slowly, layer upon layer, their forms round and constant. A breeze moves over the grass, bending it all in the same direction before releasing it back into stillness. At the harbor, small boats rock gently with the tide. Nets are coiled upon the decks, ropes tied in knots that do not loosen. The water laps against the wooden hulls, the sound repeating without change. Lanterns flicker along the pier, their flames swaying but never extinguished. A blacksmith raises his hammer. The strike falls upon iron, ringing out a clear tone. Sparks scatter, then fade into the air. He lifts the hammer again, the same weight, the same rhythm, striking until the shape is formed. The anvil remains. The work continues, unchanged across years.